With the second oldest music broadcast in the nation and the second most populated river island in the country, bought for a keg of whiskey, and the birth of a new state, I'm Wayne Worth, and you're watching On the Road in West Virginia, our 55 counties, Ohio County. The birth of Ohio County came long before the birth of our state, and it happened right here in West Liberty in 1776. Now, it really wasn't called West Liberty. At the time, the locals called this place Black's Cabin, because cabins and homes at that time in Western Virginia were used to hold court. Of course, it didn't take long for the community to be renamed West Liberty, which was named in celebration of the love of liberty of those first pioneers who lived in the region. Now, after Wheeling started booming economically, the county seat was moved there in 1797. West Liberty, of course, never saw the boom that Wheeling had, but redefined itself as a small college town. What started out as a private academy in 1837 with 65 students, West Liberty University has today become a prominent state university with an enrollment of 2,700. And that brings us right here at the mouth of Wheeling Creek, where Wheeling got its name. The name Wheeling derives from the native word, place of the head, or place of the skull. Folklore says that right here where I'm standing, a white settler was scalped, decapitated, and his head impaled to deter further visitors. Well, that plan didn't work because Wheeling was becoming a significant transportation hub, especially with the Ohio River in its backyard. So the early white settlers to the area didn't take any chances, and in 1774 built Fort Henry, which was originally known as Fort Fincastle. The fort was constructed to protect the white settlers from Indian raids, which there were a lot of during this period. There were two major sieges on the fort. The first one was in 1777, and it tells the story of this courageous dude named Major Samuel McCulloch, who was leading a small force of men to assist the besieged fort. Well, the story goes that he was separated from his men and was chased up right here by attacking Indians. With nowhere else to go because McCulloch didn't have the luxury of a national road as seen here in 2017, he and his horse leaped 300 feet down the side of this hill to safety. Today we know this moment in history as McCulloch's Leap. The second siege of the fort, which took place in 1782, tells another story of heroism, the story of Elizabeth Betty Zane. During the second siege, the fort's ammunition supply dwindled to nothing. The defenders of the fort decided to send one of their men to fetch more ammunition from the Zane homestead. Betty Zane, however, said, "Not so fast, my friend," and volunteered to fetch ammunition herself. During her run to the homestead, she was harassed and laughed at by both native and British soldiers. Upon successfully reaching the Zane homestead, she gathered a tablecloth and filled it with gunpowder. Now, going back, however, was a different story. She was fired upon, but to everyone's surprise, she was not injured. It was believed that one bullet did clip her dress, though. As a result of her courageous act, Fort Henry remained in American control. Hey, welcome to Wheeling in the 18th century. What progressed from Wheeling's colonial days was an industrial and economic boom never seen before in the city's history. Now, the arrival of the National Road in 1818 definitely helped things as it spurred growth and fostered early industries such as boat making, iron manufacturing, and glass making. Wheeling even became the world's largest producer of nails, and throughout the 1800s was called the Nail City. Shoot, Wheeling made so many nails in the 19th century, their semi-pro hockey team today is called the Nailers. To complement the National Road, in 1849 the longest clear-span suspension bridge in the world, at the time of course, was constructed over the Ohio River. Right from the start there was controversy though, as many industrials from western Pennsylvania were plotting its destruction because the height of the bridge was preventing steamboats with tall smokestacks from passing through. The state of Pennsylvania even brought a lawsuit against the bridge company to the U.S. Supreme Court in 1852. The court ruled that the bridge could stay but had to be elevated 111 feet. Well, that seemed almost impossible to the bridge company, so the bridge owners decided to lobby their friends in Congress and pass a law in declaring the bridge as a post road and protecting it as a mail carrying route. And guess what? That law passed in August of 1852, because you could stop a lot of things in this country, but you cannot stop the mail. It was definitely a bad day for steamboats as they had to decrease the length of their smokestacks. But hey, 1852 was a landmark year for Wheeling. They got to keep the suspension bridge, the B&O Railroad reached town, and West Virginia's oldest continuously published daily newspaper, the Wheeling Intelligencer, began. Now, Wheeling is most notable for its role in the creation of our state. When Virginia seceded from the Union at the onset of the Civil War in April of 1861, many people in what was Western Virginia at the time sympathized with the Union and were against secession. So what does Wheeling have to do with all this? Well, as you know, Wheeling became the main economic hub and the real deal in Western Virginia, so it only made sense to host 2 Wheeling conventions and a constitutional convention that would ultimately result in us becoming the 35th state in the Union. The first Wheeling convention took place here at Washington Hall, which is the white building behind me, and its main purpose was to devise a response to Virginia seceding from the Union. The first convention was mainly a brainstorming session. However, the second Wheeling convention in the summer of 1861 was more focused on the creation of a restored government of Virginia, and the delegates agreed to this and elected a cool dude named Francis Pierpont as governor of the restored government of Virginia. What ensued next was Governor Pierpont reestablishing government functions at the state, county, and local levels, and authorizing a constitutional convention in Wheeling, which took place at Independence Hall. Western Virginia breaking away from Virginia and becoming its own state was in the making. The convention back here approved the Constitution on February 18, 1862. However, it took an amendment from the restored government of Virginia Senator Waitman Willey, the Willey Amendment, in phasing out slavery in order for Congress to accept West Virginia as the 35th state in the Union. With much soul-searching by Congress and President Lincoln, the creation of West Virginia was approved and Arthur Boardman was elected our first governor and took office on June 20, 1863. Now, the Lindsay Institute behind me was the first state capital until 1870, when the capital moved down to Charleston. However, in 1875 it moved back to Wheeling until Governor Jacob in 1877 got tired of the capital playing musical chairs and issued a proclamation on May 1, 1885 that the capital will be permanently moved to Charleston. Wheeling from the late 1800s to the mid-1900s really seen its heyday. The population jumped from 14,000 in 1860 to 30,000 in 1880. Steel, tobacco, textiles, and coal flourished as major industries. Wheeling was rich in culture too, especially during the High Victorian era, whose relics can still be seen today. Wheeling Island, which is the second most populated river island in the country behind Manhattan Island in New York City, and said to be bought from the Native Americans for a keg of whiskey, took off after the famous suspension bridge behind me was built in 1849. The island in 1881 was host to the first West Virginia State Fair, and later other venues ensued. What really put Wheeling Island on the map, though, was Wheeling Downs, which is today called the Wheeling Island Racetrack and Gaming Center. Since 1937, Wheeling Downs has had some sort of racing going on, from horses to greyhounds. The island is also home to Wheeling Island Stadium, which is home to the West Virginia State High School Football Championships. And though many floods have devastated the island over the years, it still remains a jewel to the city. Wheeling's population peaked at 61,000 in 1930. After the Great Depression, the city started to slowly decline economically. The population today is about 28,000. The city still takes a lot of pride in preserving their past and making that past a viable tourist destination. One of these destinations is the Capitol Theater, which used to be home to the Wheeling Jamboree USA, the country's second oldest country music broadcast behind the Grand Ole Opry. The Capitol Theater still hosts an array of events, from concerts to Broadway shows and even weddings. Another destination is Oglebay Park Resort. Once owned by a rich industrialist named Earl Oglebay, he used the property as an experimental farm. Now, he willed the farm to the city of Wheeling, and upon his death the city turned it into a public park and renamed it Oglebay Park. Today the park is a resort with several golf courses, a zoo, an amphitheater, a glass and mansion museum, and even a lodge. But nothing compares to the park's Winter Festival of Lights, which is a 6-mile driving tour through the park where you can see many different holiday light displays. Though not the city it was back in its heyday, Wheeling is still the center of Ohio County and, yes, the center of our state's history. I'm Wayne Worth, and until next time, always remember, what we value and hold true in our lives today came from events that happened yesterday, and it's when we begin to understand the events of yesterday that we fully embrace today, which makes tomorrow become less of a mystery. Western Virginia breaking away from Virginia and becoming its own state. Okay, it should be really easy. Ate too much.